Hi everyone, this is the Wreckcreate reality podcast with Michael and Teresa. Today we're talking the Traitors US Season 3, Episode 8. For anyone who hasn't watched the show, there are massive spoilers ahead. In today's episode, Tom says women are better at cheating, offending all women, everywhere, all at once. And it's the ultimate pop showdown, Britney versus Ciara, oops, they did it again. Lastly, Faithful's gonna play, Traitors gonna fake, and Danielle's gonna shake. If you've missed episodes, you can catch all the action on your local streaming services. The Traitors US Season 3, Episode 8, breakdown coming up.
Good intro. Did you come up with that lyric? That's great.
A little bit of help from
That
you.
was a good one. Yeah, we're back in Sydney. We enjoyed our little trip. It's good to be home, but we miss all of our friends and family in Singapore already.
Yeah, we do. So mainly it's my family in Singapore. We had a really great time with my nieces. We did some baking, did lots of swimming. Just want to say a little bit hi to them if they ever watch it. I don't think they will.
Yeah, good. It's good to be home though. We missed our cats and dogs, and as you can see, Sherlock's in the back there.
Yep, the
listening
faithful
intently.
hound.
He's a faithful.
Yeah, he's a faithful. He's loyal. He will never, ever betray us.
Not like those traitorous cats roaming around somewhere. Yeah, a bit of a funny episode. Let's get to the traitors. I was a little bit frustrated with this episode, if I'm honest. After such an exciting couple of episodes with Rob being on the edge and finally going, and now to this episode where it seems like the faithfuls have reset. They've gone back to square one. There's little evidence. There's little gameplay. I don't know. I think I'm just getting withdrawals of missing all the gamers.
Yeah,
the big gamers leaving.
Yeah, I think I did feel that as well. Like after watching this, I was like, oh wow, you really miss the suspense and the strategizing between, like, say, Rob, Wes, Derek. They've made some very good points on the round table, but I also feel like especially Wes and Derek, they're definitely out to find traitors. Whereas I think with everyone else, it just feels a little bit like meh.
Yeah, mid meh. Yeah, okay, that's fair. And sorry.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, also with Rob and Wes and Derek, Tony Vlachos, who I miss already, Jeremy, they're experienced seasoned reality gamers. They understand the meta of it all. That not only are they there to make a show, but there's 3 levels. Make a show, find the traitors and play that game, but also create drama, excitement, entertainment, friction, conflict. They understand those precepts to making good entertainment.
Yeah,
and,
I think so. And they're also not afraid to accuse someone.
Yeah.
Yeah, which I think is something that you definitely need in this drama. Like, that push and pull, like attack, defense, offense.
It was a little bit meek, this episode.
Yeah, I think so. And again, I think maybe the Faithfuls felt like there wasn't that much evidence, but sometimes I feel like evidence can actually be found and debated if you really want to go for it.
The evidence is there. As we'll discuss, the evidence is there. And if you follow the facts and you follow behavior, as we do as viewers, even though it's, stretched out and condensed in many ways, but it's there as we'll go through. It's very obvious to me who the traitors are, other than Carolyn, but it's obvious that Danielle's a traitor to me. And it's obvious that other players like Ciara are faithfuls based on past behaviors and past actions at roundtables and outside of it. And that was what was so frustrating, is that they pinned all their votes on someone who was innocent, because they simply didn't have enough evidence on anyone else, and there wasn't the investigative impetus from anybody else to really push the blame on someone. No one was really leading. There wasn't leadership.
No, there wasn't. And Boston Rob, he did such a great job by getting rid of all the alpha males.
Yeah.
So you're left with what
and
Sam,
housewives.
Ivor. Yeah, he got rid of the most outspoken people. Yeah. So now you're left with very mellow, types who are very, very nice.
It's like a house party at my house. It's all laid back dudes.
Yeah.
But you miss it. They're like those energetic people that they're annoying, but when they're
annoying and obnoxious.
But when they're not at your party, you're like, I should have invited that guy. He really is an asshole.
Yeah. yeah. People
He
who
brings
are
the energy.
People who are like the life of the party versus people who are kind of like more like, you know, a bit of like the wallflowers.
That's the party we're watching now, I feels like. Not to diss the show. I think there will be some exciting things coming up, but just my initial feelings.
Yeah, and
about
often
the show.
I feel like with the Traitors as well, with like other seasons, we often find that the best players just get eliminated like very quickly, and towards the later half of the show, then it becomes more like the quieter people who are maybe meeker, who kind of like follow along and, you know, take the popular vote. I tend to feel this is the trajectory of the Traitors. Yeah, that's how the game show normally progresses.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah. Other than New Zealand Traitors, where we've seen the best players actually make it through to the end, or the best faithfuls. Actually, let me reword that. I think the show has consistently, if you're a very good traitor, you can win the game. If you're a very good faithful, it's very hard to win the game. So you almost have to be either a bad faithful or a good traitor, because the good faithfuls get eliminated, and in the end, you either have a very strong traitor or very bad faithfuls, like what we saw with
Harry and Molly,
Linda, what's her name? The UK recent winner.
Leanne.
Sorry,
yes,
Len,
Leanne.
skip me for a second. As just confirming what you're saying.
Yeah.
So the meek person, the meek faithful, gets to the end without having actually eliminated anyone, done anything, but because they're flown under the radar, yay, I'm a winner. Hopefully the show can repair that somehow. I don't know how. With some mechanics, there are a lot smarter people than me working on the show who understand game mechanics.
Or maybe that's just the game of life.
But that's the game, maybe. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so let's move on to the breakfast table.
Yeah.
So we find out that there are like a few people up for murder. And this is where we actually find out that Sam is actually very, very smart.
Yeah, I didn't realize he was such a clever lad. And we haven't had a chance to hear from him much because of all these other big voices. But he and Dylan are emerging as the leaders of the Faithfuls because of their ability to deduce and lead. And also people really have confidence in them. I don't think they have confidence in Tom, despite being a lovely chap. But Sam, let's talk about what Sam deduces. He makes a meta call here, right?
Yeah, he does. So I think this was when Gabby and Tom had already come into the breakfast table, and Tom was saying that, oh, you know, I looked up and I saw Alan, you know, he had these bright sparkly shoes, and that's when Sam was like, oh, okay, so let's ask the other people who are coming in whether, you know, about Alan's outfit. And then we can deduce who could be a traitor among them.
Exactly. So what he's saying is basically, he's understanding the production of the show. And that they had to film segments where Alan walked up behind the Faithfuls and tapped them on the shoulder. Or when traitors walked up behind the killed and tapped them on the shoulder. Obviously for a traitor, they wouldn't need to film that scene.
Yeah.
So what he's saying is... therefore, a traitor would not be able to identify what Alan was wearing because a traitor would be busy filming these other scenes.
Yes.
And wouldn't be that. So it's very clever. He understands production and he's able to break it down. Super smart.
Yeah.
And it goes to plan, almost.
It does. Except for the fact that this was Carolyn. Who like, you know, came in and they asked a question and she was like, And to be honest, I think like Gabby said it really well. It's okay, well, she kind of like pass-failed, you know, but we're just going to go with a pass here because it's Carolyn. You know, I think maybe she, out of anyone, you know, could
get away with it.
Because like, imagine if that was actually Danielle.
Oh, it would be a disaster.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, like, Gabby describes the funeral as being gorgeous. First person to ever describe her own funeral as being gorgeous. If it was Danielle, she would have been shaking like a leaf.
Yeah, she would have been shaking.
It would have been obvious.
Yes.
But people, underestimate Carolyn. So they don't believe she could be deceptive, even when she isn't. She comes across as all over the place, a little bit frazzled. So when she gets up there and says, I don't know, it could be... he was wearing this or that. People are like, yeah, that's Carolyn. Which is amazing. She could get away with murder. And she is getting away with murder. Like, she's like that friend that describes a movie that they haven't seen. And they're like, oh, you remember that guy in that movie with that thing? And he does that thing with the other guy. And you're like, man, you are the worst person to describe a movie ever.
I know. I think people just don't expect Carolyn Carolyn to like remember details.
No,
you know,
or to be
she's
clear.
just or to be clear. She's always very vague.
She's lovely, and this is what is playing into her game plan, and all the setup that she's done before of being a bit all over the place is actually paying off here, because this was a brilliant setup by Sam. And of course Tom steps in and saves her and says, well, the answers are... I think Tom felt bad for her and was like, you know, so the moment probably felt so awkward. They didn't believe that Carolyn could be a traitor, so he almost answered it for her.
Yeah, like maybe just to like kind of like save her the embarrassment.
Save her the embarrassment of not remembering. Anyway, it was a great setup. I'm disappointed they didn't
damn it,
follow
it wasn't Danielle, because it would have been nice to see how she would have reacted. But okay, that's just me.
I know, and like they didn't follow through with this idea too on Dolores and Dylan as well to see how they reacted. It's almost as if Dolores was like, what, you know, you're going to question me? And so they backed off it. And they didn't even question Dylan. I would have liked to have seen the answers in the edit from everybody and see how they answered this, because it would have highlighted how much more Carolyn's answer stood out. I just wish there a bit of follow through in the edit.
I think so. Like maybe they did film it, but they didn't show it. But I think it would have been nice to like follow through. Yeah. Okay, so now we find out that Chriselle is murdered.
Yes.
What did we think about her at the chapel? Okay, I thought it seemed a little bit staged when she was at the chapel. The two traitors come out. Okay, so what I thought her reaction would have been would be like, I knew it was you.
You bitch.
But instead it was very much like a Bride of Dracula, kind of like, yes.
Very meek. Oh, I succumb to you. I will go into I will enter this coffin willingly. My Dracula. Yeah, it was... too staged.
I think that was a bit staged.
Too cinematic.
It just didn't feel very like a normal reaction. Like,
no.
You know,
you got killed. I thought she went out meekly. For such a strong personality, I wanted her to say, "Yeah, Danielle, knew it was you. Carolyn, great game. Danielle, you suck."
You're gonna get found out soon.
Yeah. Basically, what she said in the confessional was what she should have said there.
I think so.
So Trishelle goes.
Yeah. What do we think about her gameplay so far?
You know, she played a pretty good game as a faithful. She is one of, I looked this up, one of 4 people who have never received a vote at the round table, right? So it's Carolyn, who we've talked about, Trishelle, Dylan, and Sam.
Yeah.
So those 4 people are still playing. They haven't been murdered, obviously. They haven't been banished, obviously. So she was clearly a beloved faithful, a trusted faithful, a confidant to many. I think where she went wrong or where it went bad is when Rob got killed, because Rob was her protector. Rob was the one that looked out for her, that said, no, let's keep Trishelle alive, mainly because she was Team Rob. She echoed a lot of his feelings, looked out for him. They were somewhat of an alliance. I noticed they were always riding cars together. He, Trishelle, Ciara, Gabby.
And I feel like she's kind of like his mouthpiece into like influencing the other girls, like the housewives as well. So maybe he might not be as tight with like say Gabby or Dolores, but then Trishelle could be like kind of like his influencer.
Such a good comment. Yeah. I like that. Yeah. And that was what he was very good at, influencing people by influencing a segment and letting that spread. Without Rob to say, you know, to block this, I think the women just had free fall and just went at Trishelle. What do you think of the murder though? Do you think it's a good kill? I thought they would go for... Yeah, sorry.
No. Well, who would you have murdered?
I thought, okay, yes, Trishelle is never going to get banished, but she's also never going to find a traitor.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? Like, so who do you kill? You kill someone that's never going to get suspected as a traitor, like Trishelle, but also you got to kill people that have the ability to find you. I thought Dylan.
I did think Dylan, because I thought as well that Dylan was probably being protected by Boston Rob.
Yes.
I thought probably his time would have been up. Tom, I feel like maybe he causes more confusion.
Yeah.
But then again, it could have been either of them.
It could have. Yeah. I think I'm just surprised they didn't go for Dylan. I think Dylan is always a threat. He's the smartest person left. And as we see, he starts to sniff out Danielle. And he's just an omniscient threat. Like, he's just always thinking, always on the game. He's not, you know, his mind isn't wandering off onto other issues. He's on the game.
Yeah, I
He's
think
playing.
So speaking of Danielle, so as Tricia has said, okay, she wasn't surprised to see Danielle. So we've actually seen some interviews from Boston Rob this week, and he's actually given us some some great insight. So do you remember the challenge in the chapel a couple of episodes before where they have to guess the riddles?
Yep, guess the riddle.
And then put the names up for who would get the shield.
Right.
Yeah, so apparently there was one stage because Danielle had guessed a lot of the answers correctly. So there was one stage where her portrait was up on the board, and also I think it was Derek's.
Right.
Yeah. So now she gets the answer correct, and she actually takes down her own picture and put up someone else's.
Yeah.
And this was not actually shown in the episode.
No.
So the one that we were shown was that she had taken...
I think she put up Dolores or Derek ahead of her.
Yeah.
But she didn't... In the edit, they didn't show her actively taking her own picture down.
Taking her own picture down.
Which is another level of, as Rob says, egregiously bad gameplay.
Yeah.
And, Rob's been on quite a few pods this week saying, he's been pretty harsh against Danielle, saying she's an egregiously bad player.
Yeah, so not to say that she's a bad person, but just in terms of her gameplay on this show.
I don't think she's... We differ here, and so let's chat about this. I don't think she's necessarily a terrible player. I think, though, this is where the point where she started a lot of the behaviours that are causing suspicion was at this challenge. I think that she knew that she effed up really badly here with the pictures. And this is the first instance that we see the shaking. The shaking that has become prevalent throughout all of her behaviours lately. I think that she knew that she effed up. She didn't have a way of covering it logically or reasonably. So she created an emotional persona that she could say, look, I panicked, I got manic, I suffer from anxiety bouts and shakes.
Right.
And that's why I chose someone else's freaking photo over mine. And that was her cover. I think that's how she's covered this glaring, egregious mistake since then.
Yeah.
And now she's leaned into this shaking, because I don't think she was shaking like this earlier on in the season.
Yeah,
but since
it's very strange, this shaking, because she's still
nuts.
shaking a lot, quite a bit, not as much
so
as before, but it's still a lot of shaking. And to be honest, sometimes I'm actually concerned. I was if this is actually real and not an actual put
it's
on,
a medical issue.
it's actually an issue. I don't think you should be playing this game.
You shouldn't be at work. You need to go home. Oh, we need to see a doctor, girl. You are shaking like a leaf out here. This is extreme bodily manifestation.
So you think that this is
It's
fake?
a panic attack. Well, it's not a real panic attack. Otherwise, we have to go to a hospital. Because the degree of shaking that she is exhibiting is nuts. But I think, as I said, she it wasn't around when Bob the drag queen was in the house.
Yeah. It happened after he got evicted.
After he left.
Yeah.
I think that's when she started to feel anxious. She started to lean into this exaggerated behaviors. When you're under pressure, you exaggerate behaviors to hide or mask perhaps how you're truly feeling.
Right. Because maybe you're afraid of coming off as treacherous or
a child that is feeling upset about things not going their way will throw a tantrum.
Yeah.
Right? Or will cry even more exaggeratedly. I believe she's feeling a little scared, a little bit anxious, but then she's shaking to mask all these mistakes that she's making, and it's kind of working. As viewers, we're a bit sus in it.
I don't know if it's working. I don't think it's working.
Do you think she's playing a good game?
No, I don't think so. Everyone who has... I think most people in the audience are probably a little bit concerned at the shaking, but even everyone who's actually been banished out, they've actually... So most of them have actually said, they are kind of they kind of expected to see Danielle as a traitor.
Yeah, true.
But Carolyn is the one who's kind of flown under the radar.
Yeah, for sure.
So could this be maybe because Carolyn is kind of all over the place? Could she be kind of copying Carolyn in a way? Yeah.
Seeing that inspires her performance.
Yeah, inspires her. Takes it to a different level.
You can be the manic one. I'll be the anxious one. Let's just be crazy sisters.
Let's just be crazy sisters. Because we see, it just comes on and off. Sometimes she actually appears quite okay, stable,
Definitely.
and strong. But
we see this later on in the episode, and I have images, receipts here to show where her body language is very strong, and then when she puts it on, she shakes like a leaf suddenly when she feels she could be investigated or under duress. She anticipates this pressure and she shakes.
Yeah.
I'm curious to see how she performs at the round table when fingers really come pointing at her. We're going to see her shake like crazy.
Yeah. And I think for the moment, she has kind of like gone under the radar because there has been, I guess, the big player, like, you know, there's been like Boston Rob. Yeah. You know, she's also had the support of like fellow big brothers like Derek, you know, Britney. So she still kind of has like, you know, quite a little bit of support. And probably Dolores maybe feels like, you know, guilty because Danielle kept saving her at that riddle challenge.
And I think that's where she has, like, I know Rob said it was egregiously bad. I'm going to say her social game has been solid.
Yeah.
Like, she has the support of Britney, Dolores, Dylan. Yeah. And that's all you need. Like, Dylan has called Danielle his bestie in the castle early in the season before he bonded with Rob. And that's all you need. A solid couple of people to vote with you and to believe in you as a traitor is all you need to go all the way. And so, yeah, I can see why people think it's a bad game because as viewers, we see it all. We see everything that she's doing. We're conscious of it.
Yeah.
But if we didn't know that she was a traitor, like just say the edit hid from us who the traitors were and we were just watching the show, as I've always wanted to see an alternate edit of the show for the internet only, where we don't find out who are the traitors and who the faithful are, I think we might view it from a different lens, and maybe we might perceive this as, oh, that poor girl.
I know, and you probably like feel sorry for her. So maybe she is playing a good game because maybe that's worked in her favor.
Yeah.
Because, you know, she just wants people to feel sorry for her and not vote her out.
Maybe.
Because it would be awkward, you know, if like, you know, at the round table you accuse her and the shaking is one of the pieces of evidence and she's like, well, that's because I've got, you know, anxiety. What else can you say?
Yeah, you total asshole. Wow. So let's get to the next part, which is, I think, so they're discussing after Trishelle goes home and they're all about the garden. They're playing polo and badminton and stuff. And the coffin theory comes up again. Can we talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, okay. So with the coffin theory, I guess, I think there is a little bit of logic there.
Yeah.
Okay, because like say with the newcomers coming in, Wes, Derek, and Boston Rob, out of the three of them, one of them ended up being a traitor.
True.
Okay, so 1 in 3. So, and in this case, why not the coffin theory? Like 1 in 3 could be a traitor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's always going to be, you know, a what if. It's always going to be
it's always going to be a what if. It is.
It is,
It could be true. It could not be true. It doesn't actually mean that, you know, any statement is actually...
They just haven't got a lot to go on. But as I said in the open about evidentiary discussions and how if you follow the crumbs, you can lead back to something. If we think back about it, the two people that were very gung-ho about the coffin theory were Bob the drag queen and Boston Rob. They were two people who are obviously traitors, and they kept on throughout car conversations saying, what do you think about this coffin theory? This coffin theory is solid. So if I were Danielle, Ciara, or someone who was in the coffin, I would be arguing against it by saying, look, the traitors are the ones that push that narrative.
Yeah.
They're the ones that set up the coffins. They chose who went into the coffins, and it behooves them to set up that coffin theory is prevalent and is valid. And they were the ones that pushed it. So why are we believing their theory now? Because they were the ones that started it, you know, that kept on saying, especially Rob in in 5 and 6, he kept on saying, we need to think about the coffin theory. We need to think about the coffin theory. That's just something I think is worth using as a defense.
Yeah, I think so. And perhaps I think it would have been great if she used it as a defense. I think that said, I think she has also been voting with Boston Rob in the last episode. So, you know, it's kind of like, well, yes and no.
Yeah.
You know?
A bitch is lying, as she says. And it's her versus Danielle and Brit, it looks like. We see that kind of forming.
Yeah. What do we think about the Danielle and Britney alliance? Like, if, you know, would you suspect... Because, okay, so the point about Ciara was that she said that, okay, Danielle and Britney, they could be, traitors because they're like, they've got an alliance. Yeah. But the fact is, I don't think we've actually seen on previous traitors, other seasons, traitors don't hang out together.
That's true.
That's the one thing I was like, they don't make a big show about it because they're like, hey, let's not get seen together. We don't want to, be like caught or something,
They're so self-conscious of it.
They are very self-conscious.
That they avoid each other, and the only times they meet each other are whispers in the library.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so that's something you need to look out for. So traders never go, hey, let's go play badminton together. Let's play polo. They don't do that. That's true.
No, they don't.
But I think it speaks to how Ciara and Gabby are kind of clued in that even if they are traitors or aren't traitors, what they say is they are still a strong duo.
Yeah.
And we need to break up strong voting blocks.
Yeah.
Because strong voting blocks can go any way. And when you have strong voting block, it's harder to convince them.
Yeah.
And they can vote out anybody. A faithful can get voted out just as likely as a traitor. So it doesn't really matter whether they're traitors or faithful. If they vote together and one of them is a traitor, they're going to influence the other to vote together.
Yeah.
And that is dangerous for anyone to
also, I think Gabby and Ciara, definitely, they probably feel quite alienated on their own. I mean, Gabby was once part of a strong voting bloc of the Bambis.
Yeah.
Ciara
had Rob.
Yeah, she did. She had Rob. And so it's like when you are kind of like robbed of your bestie, it makes it actually, and you're comparing yourself to, like say Danielle
True.
and Britney, then the comparison is actually quite apparent. And that's when you're like, hey, we need to like knock someone off a peg or two.
Yeah.
So that it's a little bit more equal.
I like that. Yeah, that's true. Should we get to the challenge?
Let's go to the challenge. So we have this baby doll challenge. And we see Tom putting his oar into trying to decipher the hymns. He's actually very good. I mean, he's I actually find myself warming to him a lot.
You know what I like about him? He's not afraid to look silly.
Yeah.
So much of these LA stars, these reality celebrities are so afraid they're so well kept, well put together. They don't want to look goofy, silly, awkward, clumsy. They're so polished. That's why Carolyn, even Ciara, a little bit too harsh, and Tom are so refreshing to watch because they're just themselves and they don't care, And so that's why I'm starting to warm to Tom. At first I thought it was a bit creepy of his stares, but the way he just throws himself all in on these challenges.
Yeah, he goes for it. And at least, come on, he goes for it. I mean, rather than, say, Britney, who's just, complaining about it, but not actually doing anything.
She's complaining about him trying to win money for her and them. It's not like he's chasing... these kids are just too cool. That's what it is. It's just a bunch of cool kids teasing the kid that tries.
I know,
and, what I mean? And it's like, no, leave Tom alone. He's all right.
Yeah.
But they get all four...
I didn't think they were going to get it. I mean, it seems like they got it
challenge.
at the last 5 minutes or something. So I was honestly surprised they did. So well done on Tom. Didn't think they were going to come through, but they did at the last minute.
The tunes sounded nothing like the tunes that they were saying. Unlike the UK version, which we watched recently, I was like, oh, that's Row, Row, Row Your Boat, or that's London Bridge is Falling. Firstly, I've never heard of half of the
like the Muffin Man.
Nursery rhymes that there was. What is that song? The Muffin Man. That sounds crazy. And secondly, they didn't show them really logically piecing it together. Do you know what I mean? The songs, it didn't sound like the songs. So it just showed them coming up with the answer and then saying it. A bit of a weird edit there. Didn't love it. In the end, Ciara gets the shield.
She got the shield. Yes.
And
so I guess we're coming to the round table.
Yeah.
So it seems like here there is this theory put out, okay, because the first two traitors are men, it's kind of high probability that the next two traitors are going to be women, which is a very valid theory, which we did find that was debunked in the UK
all women
season because it was an all women show. So it's kind of an interesting,
It's an assumption.
It's an assumption,
but the show likes to play against assumptions, but I guess in this case, they aren't wrong. There are two women left.
And also the men, actually, they do seem very faithful. I mean, you have Sam, Ivor, who, I think had a little bit of suspicion in the beginning, but now he seems actually quite okay. Dylan, who
And
definitely
Tom,
looks like a
Sam,
faithful,
yeah.
and also Tom,
Yeah.
who probably
faithful.
yeah,
They were
they
faithful.
all look very faithful.
Yeah,
Round
and
table?
yeah, and I think the hardest vote. What I was just going to say before, as we get to the round table, is the hardest vote on this show is the vote after a traitor goes home, because it's like the sand gets washed, the slate is clean.
Yeah.
All evidence that you thought, all assumptions that you thought you had, get reset.
Yeah, and looked at a new perspective of
Yeah.
that person being
Memories
a traitor.
get wiped. Everything gets shifted,
Yeah.
and suddenly you're not looking at the evidence that was building up before, such as Carolyn looking at Danielle, which is now glossed over. Now everybody's looking at Rob and his associations.
Yeah,
which is Ciara.
Which is Ciara.
And that's the wrong way, obviously, because that wasn't how it actually went. So
And also Tom put forth this like really good evidence that women are actually better at cheating. So
oh, he effed this up so bad. Gosh, and you just see
I think
the
you
women.
can just see he was like thinking this. I'm gonna say women are better at traitors, but it just comes out exactly the way he thought.
And the funny thing is, he's depicted on this show as a serial cheater, apparently.
Yeah, because I think his ex-girlfriend used to be Trichelle's.
Trichelle's- yeah.
It's Trichelle's best friend.
So he has this image of being a cheater, and he just comes up and goes, "Yeah, women are better at cheating. I mean, traitoring. I mean, oh, dude, just stop digging the hole," as Sam says. Just stop talking, Tom.
I
gotta
know.
So round table, Ciara's performance. What do we think?
Ciara, I think she made some good points against Danielle and
Yeah.
Britney, but I guess maybe her weakness was that instead of maybe going after one person, she went after two.
Yeah.
And then it's not so focused. I think it might
That's a
have
good
been
point.
better if she could be more focused. And also she swears a lot.
She swears a shitload, bitch. Girl. I mean, effing hell. I'm trying to teach my nieces not to swear as much. It's hard.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, she swears at Iva. I mean,
She swears.
I mean, Iva is probably not used to being sweared at as a royal.
I think this is the first time Ivor's been told, "Get the F out of here."
And respectfully bullshit.
That's bullshit. And he's a royal. He's used to, maybe, I don't know, maybe Meghan Markle has said the same thing to him before.
Maybe. I don't know.
But, I mean, Ciara's instincts were right, you know?
Yeah.
But she went from looking for a traitor, finding a traitor, to having to defend herself because the onslaught
Yeah.
was so heavy. But I have a few points here about the things she said, and all of her instincts were actually correct. As in, the last thing that Jeremy named was Danielle as
Danielle.
he entered the
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
The theatricality of it. Although she didn't bring this up at the round table, she did say Danielle's theatricality.
Yeah, the
was
tears,
over
the
top.
shaking was just over the
Yeah,
top.
Danielle
Yes.
using Britney as a shield. She just didn't articulate it well because of all the
think-
swearing
Yes,
and didn't
I
have
think so.
focus in her direction.
And I think people tend to lose respect for your argument if you're constantly swearing. a
Shit
lot.
yeah. Shit yeah, they do.
Yeah.
Yeah, and people voted so that they wouldn't be the odd one out. So I think when there isn't a strong name, people go with the group, which
With
is
the popular
indicative
vote,
of
yes.
mob mentality.
Yeah.
And that's a very interesting part of the show that shows how dangerous societal behaviors can be and norms can be when there isn't a clear suspect, for example,
Yeah,
in a
and
criminal
also because
case,
I think
like
no
12
one-
Angry Men.
Yeah, and I think it's like people also don't want to stand out because then
Yeah.
suspicion gets looked on them as like, okay, why did you vote out of order with the rest of us? Do we need to look at you as a traitor?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So almost standing out is a deficit. I think what I was going to say is Ciara goes at Britney and makes some good points, but she left out the best point of all in her defense, which was a traitor, before they die, before they get killed, will go for a traitor to save themselves so that their last ditch effort, if they're successful, will make them look faithful. And Rob's last shot was at Britney. So I think that Ciara had an opportunity here to really go at Britney, and if she had used that point and say, look, the last name out of Rob's mouth was Britney. We know that a traitor will try to kill a traitor before they go down so as to make themselves look as faithful as possible. He was the last name out of your mouth. We need to look at you.
Yeah, I think that's actually a very good point. And perhaps had she delivered it as level-headedly as, like, say, Derek or Wes,
Yeah.
I feel like she actually could have some really strong arguments, but because
she didn't
I guess
focus.
the way she delivered it was not ideal.
Yeah, she didn't focus her... She reflected rather than deflected, which is something that Rob talked about in his pod this week, which I was going to bring up as well. He said that when Derek went at him, he could have gone back at Derek, and that's what Derek was expecting. But when you do that, you diffuse your own argument because a lot of it gets lost in the noise. And rather than reflect, he deflected to Wes. He chung chung like that, you know, because that's what Derek was expecting. And Derek was going to win that debate if it was me versus you. Instead, he took that energy and pointed it there. Firstly, if you reflect, it makes you look petty. It gets personal.
I mean, we've seen how that panned out with Bob the drag queen.
Exactly.
You know, when Rob came at him, he just went so hard and everyone was just like, oh my God, okay, we might actually have something there.
You look guilty. It looks like someone when you get charged with like a lawsuit and you sue them back.
Yeah.
It looks petty. Rather than, you know, you deflect and you sue someone else. Shout out to Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni. It looks petty. So like you deflect it and you go at someone else. I think the opportunity was there for Ciara to deflect at Danielle here and say, look at all the evidence that is on Danielle. Carolyn went at her, shaking, and used Carolyn in that defense to deflect and attack Danielle. But it didn't work out. That's a very advanced strat that, you know, we can only come up now after watching the episode.
Yeah, and it's easy for us, you know,
it's
in our
easy for us
armchair,
as
you know, watching.
morning.
I just wanted to add a further note onto, like, when Rob deflected onto Wes, because the reason I think that Wes also kept himself low and let Derek lead the charge was he was expecting a backlash.
Yes.
And so I think Derek himself, he was like, oh, I expected Boston Rob to come at me.
Exactly, yeah.
You know, so, you know, he's probably has a really good defense. But Wes is probably like, okay, well, no, Derek's going to cop the most of it. So he probably was not
Sitting
prepared
back.
when the deflection happened.
Exactly.
And so it's like a stealth attack.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think that was probably, just looking back on what Ciara could have done in terms of gameplay moves and in terms of roundtable strategy, that was probably the last ditch play that she could have had. But her fate was pretty much sealed, it seems like, because... Yeah, it was a unanimous vote.
And I think, like I think, you know, they had to exhaust the coffin theory in lieu of more evidence.
Yeah, it's true. The work was already set in stone, and if she was going to deflect that coffin theory, it needed to be argued earlier and more often. But they were always going to come back to it, unfortunately. It was always on their lingering mind, the mind's lingering.
I mean, even if they go all the way to the... finale, like they'll probably still end up voting her out just because there is that doubt.
Oh, it sucks.
Yeah,
it sucks. How about her exit? She went out with a bit of class.
Yes, she did.
She didn't go out swearing.
I did. I expected her to go out swearing, you know, both fingers up, but she didn't. So that's good.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone can upstage Bob the drag queen on exits in the season.
Yeah, true that.
Okay, so now after banishment, so we have this scene, okay, which I think is very interesting. So Danielle and Carolyn, they're chatting in a room, and unbeknownst to them, Dylan, Ivor, and Sam are actually in the hidden bookcase.
Yeah.
And Dylan comes out surprising both of them.
Yeah.
Yes, and there was like quite an awkward scene, I think, where Danielle was like projecting because, like, you know, she probably feels like very caught in the headlights. Yeah.
So I actually have some stills of that moment. So like, firstly, I was surprised that they heard the whispers and they just walk out. The bookcase room is used to catch people whispering. I'm just disappointed they didn't like put their ear to the door and try and catch what they were saying. If they had, they would have caught all the stuff they've been plotting and planning. Them discussing who had the shield, how they were going to talk about later. They would have been caught red-handed. 3 faithfuls catching 2 traitors.
Do you think so? Because I think they were kind of like like whispering. I think they can hear when they're like laughing or like talking loudly.
Yeah, okay.
But like there's a bookcase.
It might be the edit.
It might be the edit.
I think the edit, they've overlaid the sound to make it sound like they're a lot denser than they are. But
because it seems like Carolyn and Danielle, they're kind of like keeping it.
But he could have been a bit more sneaky, but that would have made him look more traitorous.
But because like, what if they get found out? So anyway,
know.
I think Danielle was like, well, that looks very sus, you being there with the boys, in this hidden, chamber.
And then we see, like, as we were talking before, her body language shifts from very strong. She's sitting up very strong when Carolyn's there. She's confident. He comes out, I've got nothing to hide, da-da-da. And then her body language changes very suddenly, very drastically.
As soon as Carolyn leaves.
As soon as Carolyn leaves, and it's her alone with Dylan.
Like hunching.
Her hands go between her legs. Her knees come together. Her shoulders go down. And she starts shaking and trembling like a leaf. She looks uncomfortable. The brow is furrowed. At this point, it's obvious it's a performance to me. Because Dylan is just sitting there like, do you want me to go? Are you okay? I'm not doing anything. I'm not saying anything. I'm not touching anything. Like, what the heck? This isn't a 15-year-old girl. This is a 55-year-old woman. And, she's behaving very oddly. And I think we hear the overlay in the confession. Dylan saying, I need to start looking at her because this is sus.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, this is sus. I think it's starting to backfire, all this shaking. It's very obvious to us. I just don't get it, like, why she keeps doing it. But, I think it's become almost an impulsive behavior that she reverts to when she's feeling pressure. And I think this is the biggest example of it here.
When she doesn't want to appear, I think, like, look overly suspicious. I think.
And when she doesn't want to talk, I think it's an avoidance technique as much.
Okay.
Like sometimes children will... I keep on going to... Sometimes children will use avoidance techniques to, to get out of doing something. I feel... I don't want to do my homework. I feel sick, sniffly. I think this is a bit like that.
Look who's been going to therapy.
Yeah, it's been working wonders. This is the face of a therapy man. There's no stress here. There's no anxiety.
Fine.
Okay. Turret talk?
Turret talk. Okay, so who would you recruit or murder, and who?
Okay. Let's see. I would murder Britney.
Why?
Because I think if I'm Danielle, and I think Carolyn's fine. I think she's sweet. It doesn't really matter who she murders. But if Danielle is Britney's murdered, then it really makes Danielle look safe and clear at this point, because that's her bestie. Yeah. And it deletes suspicion of her for at least a couple. I think the heat is starting to come in on her. They're running out of people to point fingers at. All the guys are faithful, clearly, by the way they perceive each other. Dolores is in the clear. I don't think Gabby's going to get any suspicion. Danielle's the next best suspect.
Okay.
And I think she needs to
Britney's
kill...
the next... Oh, okay, Danielle,
she needs to kill Britney in order to... make it look like, why would I kill my best friend? Oh my god, who did this? Yeah. To come into the breakfast table the next day and say, you bastards, how could you break my heart like this? I'm going to miss this. And then the shaking might be a bit valid. But who would you murder?
I think I would murder Sam, just because I think he seems like a clear faithful. I don't think people will vote for him. And also he seems like he's very smart too. Yeah, it's just a matter of time. I mean, he got... he was actually right about the breakfast table. Like, okay, the traitor... wouldn't be able to know what Alan is wearing. It's a big, And
also Rob too.
Yeah, and so I would murder Sam. For me, I think I would recruit Britney.
Wow.
And that's just because I would want a traitor to be found out soon, and she could be the sacrificial. Yeah. She could be the sacrificial lamb.
Do you think that's what Britney? Danielle says that. Danielle says all this stuff in the turret, like sisterhood, yay, sisters, and all this stuff. Uses all these feminist words to try and win her over to the women's movement. But Carolyn isn't buying it.
No.
Carolyn's like, you're going to bring in Britney here to kill me.
Which is extremely bad.
The trust has been burned. Do you really believe, Danielle, that she's bringing in Britney to kill Britney?
Yes, of course.
Really?
Yeah, of course. That's what I would do. Because I don't think that, okay, as much as it's portrayed on the show, it seems like they're best friends. I don't think they are best friends. I think it's just a show thing.
It's very fake, I find.
I mean...
Yeah.
Yeah.
Firstly, observing their behaviors, it's that put on thing that you try to be amicable with somebody else. You mirror their behavior and you're like, oh, yeah, yeah, girl. You encourage, you reflect, you echo, you repeat, you support, and you just say what they're saying. So Britney will just be dancing and she'll dance along with her. Britney will say, oh, we got him, girl. Yeah, we got him, girl. She's just doing a lot of that. Like parroting.
Yeah.
In order to seem like they've got a great relationship.
Yeah.
And that they're besties. But
I believe
I
she
don't
would
see
have,
real connection there.
Yeah, I believe she would have no qualms about sacrificing like Britney, because like Britney is probably up for banishment the next,
and it's only 2023 that they were on Big Brother last I looked up. I thought it was 20 years ago. Yeah,
where Britney actually betrayed Danielle, so that's got to sting.
That's got to sting, and this is her payback chance, right? You bring her in as a traitor, you kill her, you look like a faithful afterwards. Yeah. It's a 200 IQ move. Yeah. But the thing is, I think Caroline is going to block it. And
I know. To be honest, I think if Caroline maybe wasn't that emotional about it and like maybe distrustful of Danielle, it actually is a good move. I think. That's what I think.
Maybe that's what Danielle needs to say, is she needs to say, look, I know you don't trust me and Britney, but all this has been game. I don't actually, have this connection with her. This is part of my game to create a false connection. The minute she becomes a traitor, I'm going to burn her. It's going to be good for you and me. Trust me on this. Yeah. That's what I think she needs to say rather than what she is, which is just like, no, it's you and me, girl. It's you and me.
No, actually she said it's us three, which I think is like, well, that's definitely not,
That's not a good call.
Yeah, and also like people are expecting a woman traitor. Give them a woman traitor.
Yeah, that's great. That's a good call. So you would recruit Britney just to kill her? Yeah. I think I would recruit Dylan just to kill him, but then again, how do you get rid of Carolyn out of that turret? That's the thing. Like, as I don't think you can.
I don't think you can. It's like I mean, I'd like to see someone try.
Yeah, it's almost like you need backup, and I think that's what Danielle needs. She needs to bring in someone that is the most faithful of faithfuls to get rid of Danielle. Otherwise, Carolyn. Otherwise, you're splitting that pot because she is going to be so hard to get out of that turret and out of the round table. She's just entrenched as a faithful. She's part of the furniture. Yeah. Oh man, what have we got left?
I think it's almost done. Like, should we wrap it up?
I've got nothing left to talk about.
Yeah. Okay. Guys, great. So this is.
Sorry, before you go, don't forget we also have Survivor.
Oh yes, Survivor. Yes.
Coming up this week. Yeah. If you're into Survivor and you haven't watched Survivor AU, watch it because it is the best version of Survivor I think out there. It's old school as you remember it. We're going to be covering it. It's Brawn v Brain 2. It's 4 episodes a week. We're probably only going to do 1 episode weekly recap because it's a lot to do that and this show and after work, and I have pets, for crying out loud. But we're going to do our best to cover it. Please watch it. Please support us. Please get into it because it's going to be great fun.
Yeah,
can't wait. Follow us for that.
Yeah, no, I'm very excited. Okay, guys, thank you so much. This is a wrap up. Thank you for listening to the show. This is the Wreckcreate Reality Podcast by Michael and Teresa. You can find us on Wreckcreate on TikTok and Instagram. That's WRECK.CREATE, where you can watch funny short clips of what we've talked about. If you like what you hear, be sure to like and subscribe to our pod. It really helps us a big deal. We are extremely grateful for any support you give. We'll be back shortly with the next episode of Traitors and also Survivor Australia. So stay tuned.
See you guys. Goodbye.